Brilliant. Thank you very much. I've got to say, I think that's probably the best video to an event like this to welcome me to the stage. So thanks, Limworks and GFS for pulling that together. For those of you who don't know me, Richard Lim, I'm the CEO of Retail Economics. We're an independent economics consultancy, and we've got this laser-like focus on what's happening within retail consumer. So we do a lot of our own research, we create a lot of our own proprietary data, we work with lots and lots of different clients to really try to put the pieces of the jigsaw together to help understand that holistic view of what's going on. And I would say that what an amazing time it is to work in the retail sector at the moment. There is just so much going on. And I've been an analyst within the retail sector for more than 20 years now. And I have to say that the pace of change feels like it's accelerating, and it's faster than I've ever seen over that time within retail. And if you think about how we used to shop 20, 30 years ago, that customer journey is almost unrecognizable compared to how we shop today. And so whether it's things like Gen AI, new technologies, the explosion of marketplaces, the relentless rise in customer expectations, international competition from Shein and Temu, pre-loved, the circular economy, there is just so much going on within the retail sector, it's really difficult to keep up. And so I think more now so than ever before, businesses need to be lean, they need to be agile, they need to be adaptive to the retail environment that is unfolding. We've got these constant waves of disruption within the sector. And I think one thing that is really clear to me is because of the pace of change, we've got to a situation where many retailers are operating with business models that are no longer fit for purpose. To remain relevant, competitive, retailers must embrace agility, they must forge strong relationships and partnerships, and they must harness the full power of data and put their customers at the very heart of their business. And our latest research with GFS really puts this at the center of what we've done. So we're delighted to have launched this latest piece of research. This is the third report we've done with GFS. And with this research, we wanted to gain unique insights from both from a consumer perspective and a retail perspective, a bit of a both sides of the till, to see how businesses are trying to navigate through these challenges. We looked at building a framework around these disruptive waves that are changing the industry through our disruption matrix. But we also present a new adaptive commerce model. And this is a model to provide some pragmatic solutions for retailers to combat these risks. We then went on to measure the shortfall, and what we found is that there's a big gap between strategy and execution, especially for smaller firms. And we quantified some of these trends from doing a comprehensive survey of over 2,000 households. We also interviewed over 100 different retailers as well to get that sense of what was happening both sides of the till, and also compare the expectations of consumers against the reality that businesses are facing today. And one of the absolute key insights that we wanted to do, and we've continued to do this over the last 3 years, is try to measure basket abandonment. We know that basket abandonment has plagued the industry for years. And our research just shows that actually it's getting worse. In fact, what our research shows is that basket abandonment is costing the industry £38.3 billion a year. And it was up 11% on the previous year. I'll repeat that, £38.3 billion of goods left at that point of checkout, that critical moment of click, that critical moment of conversion that's left at the checkout. And what's driving this? A simple but critical failure in meeting customers' expectations around delivery. And what our research found is that almost a quarter of all non-food purchases are left at the checkout because retailers are failing to meet those customer expectations they're failing to meet delivery preferences. 2/3 of high-frequency online shoppers abandon their baskets at least once a month. These are high-frequency, valuable, your most valuable customers, typically younger customers, frequent online shoppers, higher transaction values, higher lifetime values that are abandoning their baskets at least once a month. And together, lack of delivery options and high delivery costs alone account for almost half of all abandonments. And also we surveyed retailers, and over 1/3 of retailers say that their ability to manage basket abandonment needs improvement. So they recognize the issues around basket abandonment, but actually executing a strategy to try to reduce basket abandonment is something that they are finding problematic. Part of the reason that we've got this issue within the industry is because customer behaviors, the customer journey is changing so rapidly. We've created this disruption index, and we've outlined 5 key areas where we see unprecedented disruption. The first area is around hyper customer expectations. And let's be honest, customer expectations are higher than ever before. And I think one of the reasons for this is because consumers have grown to become accustomed with other consumer-facing industries. If you think about how financial services have changed and open banking, that's revolutionized the financial services industry. If you want a pizza, you have seamless access to Deliveroo that offers you any takeaway, any cuisine. If you want access to intelligence, you've got ChatGPT. If you want access to information, you've got Google, with Google's AI overview as well. But consumers have been exposed to different consumer industries, their level of expectations have risen, and that is causing them to have higher expectations for the retail sector as well. Social commerce is also changing the way that consumers research, discover, and engage with brands. TikTok leading the way in this. We're also entering an age of AI-assisted commerce, where platforms like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, and many others are disrupting the customer journey, and they're also changing the relationship between retailers and brands. International competition is intensifying. Shein, Temu, and others are selling directly to your customers. And then to say that the international trade environment looks a lot more uncertain today is, of course, a gross overstatement. And then you've got sustainability, not forgetting sustainability, because while it might feel like it's fallen down the agenda a little bit in terms of priority, it still remains a key foundational pillar of disruption, whether that's around products and carbon emissions within products, the measurement of carbon emissions, delivery, or behaviors. And all of this together is disrupting the retail sector and it's disrupting the customer journey. And in terms of how it's disrupting the customer journey, it actually made me think about my mum. This is actually genuinely a picture of my mum. She turned 80 last month. And actually, if I think about her customer journey, it hasn't really changed in about 50 years. So my mum would typically, she might be in front of the TV. She's influenced by traditional media. She's watching Corrie. She gets served an advert, and she thinks, oh, actually, yes, I need that new dress for a wedding, or I need a new jumper. And so she'd jump on the bus, she'd head into a local town centre. She'd probably go to M&S. She wants to touch the product, see the fabric. She wants to try it on. She wants to do some price comparison in store. But then she'll probably go to John Lewis. She wants to see what they've got. Again, she wants to have that experience in store. She wants to go to the changing room. She tries things on. She ends up buying it in John Lewis. It gets neatly folded into a paper bag, and then she hops on the bus and she goes home. She'll probably wear the jumper for a year, 2, sits in her cupboard for the next 5 to 7 years, and then ends up in a charity shop. That is my mum's customer journey. Very one-dimensional, and it hasn't changed for a very long time. But her granddaughter has a completely different journey. For the 3 hours a day that she spends on TikTok, scrolling through really personalized content that's built within her community, she'll probably be influenced, maybe by an AI avatar. That will encourage her to go into a flagship location. It might be Birmingham Bullring, Leeds Trinity, Oxford Street, Regent Street, Westfield, to experience and immerse herself in the brand. Inevitably, she's in the store, she gets out her phone, she does some price comparison on Google. Google might give her an AI overview. It might send her to the Nike website. She wants to buy a pair of leggings, so she's looking at what they've got in stock. She decides then, actually, let me go to H&M. I'll have a look and see what they've got. Her friend then mentions, oh, have you seen Lululemon? That word of mouth is still very powerful in terms of marketing. So she goes to Lululemon. It's a new retailer for her. She wants to try it out. She adds something to basket, and it's at that point she discovers it's 3 to 5 day delivery. She abandons her basket. She wants next day. That's her expectation. That's what she wants. She goes back to a retailer that she trusts. She knows her delivery expectations are met by their policies. She goes to Zara. Inevitably, she orders 3 pairs of leggings with the intention of keeping one of them. She gets them delivered to an in-post locker near where she works. She picks them up. She then goes, she then tries them on, takes some photos of herself on TikTok or Instagram. She then returns the other 2 to an in-post locker near to where she lives, and then inevitably she'll do all of that in full knowledge that she'll probably end up selling those leggings in 6 to 9 months' time to recover some of the initial cost on Vinted. So her perception of value of products has also changed as well. We've never seen this kind of variability in the customer journey before. My mum that shops the way she shops, and it hasn't changed for 50 years, versus her granddaughter. And actually, for the granddaughter, her expectations for what she sees as the relationship with brands and retailers is elevated across every single one of those stages of the customer journey. She wants better communication up front. She wants to understand delivery and returns policies seamlessly. She expects multiple payment options when she actually buys a product. When it comes to delivery, she wants multiple options depending on her shopper mission, the urgency, the product, the price point. So she wants all of those different options for delivery, and then when it comes to returns, she wants something that suits her. But that level of expectations is much, much higher, and we've never seen that variability and those levels of expectations across the customer journey that we're dealing with today. And ultimately, it makes the customer journey so much more difficult for retailers to measure, understand, and adapt to. So when it comes to expectations around delivery, as an example, she wants seamless deliveries, she wants options, and actually she'll abandon her purchase if it doesn't meet her. So we can see here that by age, basket abandonment rates are much higher for younger generations, so Gen Zs and millennials. You can see here that they're abandoning their products around 60% of the time, at least once a month. For older generations, that drops off quite considerably. But around 65% of Gen Zs, 59% of millennials, and these are the most valuable online customers. The primary reasons behind abandoning baskets are due to limited delivery or choice, high costs, clunky websites, and actually clunky websites is a really important factor as well. Because of that complex customer journey, consumers are bouncing between different channels, they're bouncing between different devices within the digital experience as well, and actually as their intent grows, the devices change as well. So discovery might be done mostly on a mobile, but as they go through a few different loops and then their intentions grow, that experience then might move to laptop. They want a more enriching experience. They want deeper levels of information. They might trust that laptop environment more. But essentially, clunky websites is another area, and also just not meeting their expectations around speed. Right, before I move on to my next slide, a quick show of hands, how many people think they spend too much time on their mobile phones? Okay, I'm definitely in this camp. The average consumer spends 3 hours and 42 minutes on a digital device outside of work. We spend 8 hours at work, 8 hours asleep, unless you're me with a 2-year-old child that keeps you awake all night, and then you spend 8 hours of leisure time. So almost half of that leisure time is spent staring into a digital device. And if you're a social media user, like 92% of the UK population, you spend almost 2/3 of that leisure time on that mobile, on the digital device, looking at social media. So social media, of course, is used widely across all areas of our population. And what we see is that social commerce is worth about £7 billion today. We expect it to double in the next 5 years to reach about £16 billion. It accounts for about 4.5% of online sales. We expect it to account to more than 10% in the next 5 years. And if you look at the areas of retail that are being affected by social commerce, it's beauty, it's clothing, it's DIY, it's food. And to give you a sense of the scale, if you looked at all of the beauty sales that are made on TikTok Shop, all of the beauty sales made on TikTok Shop, it would make TikTok the second largest beauty retailer in the UK. It's an enormous amount of volumes of transactions on beauty in particular going through social commerce. Gen AI, of course, another area. We've already briefly mentioned AI-assisted retail, but we're rapidly moving towards AI platforms helping consumers discover brands, refining their choices. So if you look at, for example, Perplexity in the US allows consumers to search on Perplexity and check out, add things to basket within Perplexity without going to a website. It's been speculated that ChatGPT, OpenAI are forming a relationship with Spotify. So it's going to allow AI to have access to Spotify's merchants, information around reviews, information about inventory, information about pricing that can be dragged through to GPT and potentially just checked out on GPT without ever leaving the website. So sustainability as well. Can't forget sustainability. 90% of under 35s participate in sustainability in a circular economy. We know that 50% of consumers have bought something secondhand in the last 12 months. 50% of consumers have sold something, secondhand in the last 12 months as well. And so pre-loved is really, really gathering momentum. So we've got all of these disruptions, this matrix of disruptions, all combining together to create a really complicated environment for the retail sector. And this is where we've developed our adaptive commerce model, a model that's a strategic response to these disruptive environment. It's designed to help build flexibility, to help retailers evolve and thrive in this environment. In the face of this relentless environment, what I would say is that those traditional business models and business plans of 3 to 5 years are no longer fit for purpose. Retailers need to be much more agile. They need to adapt a much more agile approach, whether that's around consumer behaviors, unpredictable supply chains, emerging technology. And this is where our adaptive commerce model comes into play. It's built on 3 main pillars: customer-facing adaptability, operational adaptability, and technical adaptability. So customer-facing adaptability. This is about understanding, responding to, and almost predicting where consumer behaviors are heading. Customer engagement means delivering personalized experiences across delivery, marketing, service. Workforce culture is often overlooked, but it's essential for your teams to embrace the latest digital tools, to have the training in place, to forge that strong culture of innovation. Customer experience, this could be anything from AI chatbots to multi-channel service, but retailers must deliver that consistent, responsive, and intelligent support across every touch point. Operational adaptability is about responding to more complexity. And agility here is what separates the leaders and the laggards. And so whether it's logistics and final mile, we're seeing this shift towards multi-carrier strategies, smarter cost management, real-time contingency planning, speed and flexibility are non-negotiable. You've got merchandising, where we've moved away from like fixed calendars and rigid planning to something that's much more dynamic, whether that's pricing, responsive range planning, data-led markdown strategies. Sustainability, of course, a key pillar as well, and retailers are under increasing pressure to measure carbon efficiency, reduce energy consumption, manage packaging waste. So all of these while also complying to regulatory standards and also protecting margins as well. And the final third pillar around technical adaptability. And technology is the engine room of adaptive commerce. Systems and data that are built for scale and speed. Think AI, machine learning, cloud computing, real-time analytics to help make smarter and faster decisions. Integration is vital. Retailers, so many of the conversations I have with retailers is about having siloed data, bits of data that don't really talk to each other, but having that seamless, things like seamless AI, API management, cross-channel synchronization, it's those types of technologies that are underpinning the experience. An omni-channel, so social commerce, cross-channel marketing, unified loyalty teams that are offering that single customer view, or at least as near as you can get to a single customer view. It's about being everywhere your customers are, but with context. And in reality, retailers are falling short of these goals. It depends on so many factors. It depends on where retailers are on that path of digital transformation, who their core customers are, the sophistication of their omnichannel proposition, the legacy of tech debt that's been built up within their business, their culture, their strength of balance sheet, and many other factors. But in the research, what we saw, one common theme that we saw, is that smaller retailers are falling behind the competition when it comes to being compared to their larger counterparts. For example, when it comes to multi-carrier management, larger businesses were more likely to say that they had market-leading capabilities compared to small companies, and the same kinds of differences emerged, whether it was around complex integrations, tech solutions, personalized recommendations, and even use of multi-carrier partners. But you can see here some key highlights. 35% say that their basket abandonment strategy needs work. Only 24% are confident about managing multiple carriers. Only 65% feel confident about personalized communications. And indeed, what we saw is that when it comes to SMBs, they're really disadvantaged when it comes to these waves of disruption. Only 18% rated themselves as excellent when it came to carrier performance. They lack this commercial scale, they lack the advanced capabilities, they lack the skills in order to effectively manage those multi-carrier solutions effectively. So how to close the gap? A quick reminder of these frictions. 2/3 of frequent online shoppers are abandoning their baskets every month. Gen Zs are particularly sensitive when it comes to abandoning their baskets at a whim. Time poor, but wealthier millennials are also more demanding, and shoppers expect speed, flexibility, and control. Businesses recognize this. They recognize the issues, they've identified them, but there's a gap when it comes to meeting those, identifying those solutions, and then executing on the solutions. So although 80% work with multi-carrier solutions, only 24% feel fully confident to manage them. That drops to 18% for SMBs. And put simply, SMBs are just far less likely to have the know-how, tech, commercial leverage to execute on this multi-carrier strategy. And this is a problem that they can solve. The retail sector is becoming much more complex, and part of the solution, for sure, is partnerships. Effective partnerships with multi-carrier solutions, effective partnerships when it comes to marketplaces, LinnWorks, effective partnerships when it comes to having technology to scale at speed, whether that's AWS or Google Cloud. But as the industry becomes much more complicated, partnerships is going to be an absolute critical key to resolving that. The retail sector is tough. Margins are being squeezed. If you look at the top 100 retailers in the UK, pre-tax profit margins have halved over the last 10 years. They've gone from about 9.5% to 4.5% in 10 years. So retailers are looking at ways to become more efficient and drive those operational efficiencies. So if I was to leave 4 main messages, it's around ensuring that the checkout priorities deliver against expectations. It's about integrating front-end choice with back-end execution. It's about reducing customer friction around speed, choice, and convenience, drive operational efficiency, reduce risk, and ensure consistency of service and quality. I just think that those days of having rigid strategies that span over 2 to 3 years are in the past. We're moving at such a rapid pace. So adaptive commerce, in my view, would become the backbone of a new era of retail, one that's defined by speed, intelligence, and purpose. Thank you very much. Please download the report. There's loads more detail within the report, so we only scratched the surface on some of these things. But thank you very much.